All right. Here's that moment of truth. That moment of truth where you wait for it, where you wait for it, and you hope that everyone wakes up. You wait for the Rockfin. Rockfin, where are you? Where are you? Up. YouTube wins today. YouTube was first by a lot. It's not a competition, but Twitter is always first. And here comes Rockfin. Rockfin was slow today. Rockfin, you were slow today. Nobody sees this except for me, but that's okay. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon to all my East Coasters. How's the afternoon? What's it like? Is it sunny where you're at? Good morning to all my West Coasters. I'm that it's morning for me, and this is one of those days where I exercise first thing. Still feels weird. It's still. I'm not a morning person. I'd rather be awake than not person. So, and those are two different things. I believe this, and also good evening if you're in an evening time zone, wherever that may be, and to everyone in the future, Australia, New Zealand, solve climate change. Text me the solution, and we'll take it from there. It's a lot of pressure. I get it, but someone's got to do it. Shout out to Indie Left. Indie Left helps make this show possible, and they are the only place to find all the content creators and streamers you know and love. What they do is they curate a list for you, and they update it twice a day, and you can get articles, videos, anything you're looking for. And yours truly wrote their theme song. To find out more about what they got going on and to subscribe to their Discord community, they're dancing over at the Discord. Check them out at independentleft.media. All right, so my guest today, regular on the show and also works at Fight for the Future. And Fight for the Future has a new project going on that we're going to talk about here to start today. So please welcome back to the show, Leah Holland. Leah, how are you?
Hey, Ron, I'm all right. I'm also gotta be up in the morning person and did go on a run today. So I guess we can use that leftover high talk about this stuff.
There's a couple days a week where it makes sense for me to arrange my day that way. Mostly Tuesdays and Wednesdays, where I'll exercise first. And I am like so not a morning person, but there's something about that I do like it. You know, like you feel like you're just accomplishing things and you're just like knocking stuff off your to-do list for the day, and then you have more breathing space later as you go about your day. And but on the same note, I kind of feel like I'm still like a zombie for a little bit. And then there's other people where it's clear that they're morning people. Like they almost have and I'm not trying to, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but I feel like there's almost like a cult-like element about them. Like they know who, like they're peppy, and it's like, how are you this way at this time? But they know it, and they know who else is that way, and they're like, good morning, and you're like, and I feel like they know I'm an imposter, but that could be in my head.
Yeah. I mean, you can be an imposter, but you're still showing up. Who knows? Maybe you'll reprogram your brain, and then a year or two from now, you'll be one of those people.
I hope not. Well, I mean, hey, I'll embrace it if it happens. Never say never. But so anyway, here is what's going on. One of the more pressing things going on at Fight right now. You guys have launched a website, No COVID in Our Name. And so I'll just kind of, I'll pull it up here, and I'll just kind of do a summary of my understanding, and then you can fill in the blanks for me. So around the world, there are places that are not getting the resources they need when it comes to the pandemic. They're not getting the medicine that they need, the treatments, the vaccines themselves. They're not getting any of these supplies. And the world needs to make the effort to do better with distribution. Now, one of the things impeding this, one of the things that makes this more difficult is the behavior of big pharma, especially here in the United States. What they do is they get all these patents on life-saving drugs. And this isn't something that started with COVID. They've been doing this forever. They've been doing this for years and years and years, where they safeguard these patents despite a lot of the research and development being done with the public's money. They still will guard these patents, not allow generics to be made, not allow the formulas to be shared. And then through a process called evergreening, which is even shadier, they'll continue to renew the patents by just changing something like the color of a pill or something like that, and then getting a whole new patent altogether. So this is what big pharma does. And not only is it morally disgusting, but it shouldn't be legal at all because, again, this is the public's money. Now, why is it called No COVID in Our Name? Well, because if you could believe it, show business, Hollywood, the music industry, and others have gone to bat for the people, right? No, not for the people. They've gone to the mat for Big Pharma. And what they're doing, and this is, just saying this out loud, I'm getting a little angry. Like I want to punch this desk right now because it's so gross what they're doing. See, in the entertainment world, if you're a musician or a writer or a creator of sorts, there are certain protections for your creation, like a copyright or an intellectual property or a trademark. And that has to do with your creative output so that you don't get screwed over. The industry usually finds a way to screw you over anyway. That's a different topic for a different day. But what they're doing right now is they're comparing that sort of thing, a creative protection, they're comparing that to what I just described, what Big Pharma's doing. And this was just exposed. So the No COVID in Our Name is different people. There's everything from Hollywood actors and actresses to musicians to digital rights activists, friend of the show, Cory Doctorow, he signed on to this, to content creators and everything in between who are signing this letter saying, no, Hollywood, that's not the way it works. That's a pretty gross comparison. Is this, am I in the ballpark here? Is this kind of what's going on here?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice to see somebody express that same outrage that we first felt when we learned about this, because it's truly a remarkable reach to say, especially when the text of this agreement itself as proposed specifically lays out that everything that they're trying to share, which is both the tools and the know-how to make things like vaccines, ventilators, tests, the essential resources for saving people from COVID-19 all around the world, to say that that those are in any way equivalent to the artistic copyright, and that coming out of the pandemic where so many artists have suffered from the pandemic, and now we're going to deal them this blow by saving artists in other countries who are going to die of COVID because they can't get vaccines or essential medical help to save their lives. It's just we always see when we're working on issues that have to do with copyright, this sort of cabal that forms with all of the big, huge moneyed capitalist organizations that are that essentially make their money on the backs of creators and on the backs of exploiting those rights throughout time for years, hundreds of years, past their deaths, what have you. And they always come together to support each other no matter what the issue is. And so this is an instance where, the MPAA, Motion Picture Association of America, American Publishers Association, the Recording Industry Association of America sent lobbyists to Washington to what it appears to be to sow doubt about what this waiver is actually for. And perhaps also there's this insidious, almost accusing of these 100 countries that have signed on asking for this waiver, that maybe they're trying to take advantage of the pandemic to steal artist IP in the US and in the EU and all of that jazz. And it's just so disgusting, and something that anybody that we explain this to is outraged about. Yeah, so it's we've had everyone from Stephen Fry, Deborah Messing, Amanda Palmer, Neil Gaiman,
Tom Morello,
so many.
Yeah, folks from all across, different political ideologies, different mediums, different all kinds of people.
Yeah, there was
just saying this is absurd.
Yeah, there was a whole lot of oh hell no.
Right.
As soon as this came up, and actually right now is when the meeting at the World Trade Organization, which is the body that's making decisions around this, is meeting.
Well, hold up. So I wanted to go there next. So y'all were hoping to really get this through by that meeting. So what's going on in that meeting, and why is that World Trade Organization meeting so important?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, last World Trade Organization meeting, the Biden administration actually did something really important, which is that they didn't listen to all of these lobbyists, and they got the U.S. out of the way on negotiating this sort of trade agreement. But unfortunately, there are still countries that are opposed or trying to weaken or stonewall the sharing of this life-saving medical stuff. And so right now, at this WTO meeting that started yesterday and is continuing today, they're trying to negotiate like what the scope of this is going to be. And the US is saying, oh, well, maybe we just talk about vaccines. And I'm like, tests, ventilators, like there's so much more here that, that needs to be shared, that we just have the information. And if we just share it, then people in other countries can make vaccines and everything that they need. But we're not doing that because of this copyright lobby. So we put together this letter with the idea of getting it out there as this meeting is happening, as maximum lobbyist pressure, millions of dollars coming from big pharma, like on not just the US, but the EU, and other, like nations that hold these IP rights around the world, so that they can, hear specifically from creators, specifically on this, like this argument that this will not be done in our name. And to that end, we're continuing to collect signatures at nocovidinourname.com and hoping that more artists, both big and small, whatever medium you work in, sign on and support.
So what is the desired outcome? The meeting is going on literally as we speak. It's a 2-day process, so it's still going on today. What is just the straight up desired outcome of this? Like what is the best case scenario?
I mean, the best case scenario would be the countries that continue to obstruct to get out of the way, and for the U.S. to not be saying, "Oh, hey, let's only talk about sharing vaccine information." There's just so much pressure being exerted right now that essentially all the organizations who have been focusing on this issue throughout the world for months now called in the cavalry to the largest extent possible, and we saw this opportunity specifically to make hay and to undermine the argument that this is something that will harm artists. So that's kind of where we work, and that's the force that we're bringing to bear.
Well, yeah, so the interesting thing is, like, first of all, the entertainment business, and of course it's the CEOs and it's the business moguls doing it in, creative's name is just disgusting on so many levels to begin with. But also it does the creators think of no, this hurts us because a lot of creators, they're ready to get back on tour. So the pandemic is very bad. So what you're saying is not only disgusting morally, but just straight up ass backwards anyway.
Yeah, completely counter to the interests of the artists, the living and touring artists themselves, who need to engage in society or go anywhere or like live in a non-COVID world in order to like make their money and do their art. There's this continuing trend that's happening with these companies and with copyright, where you see like there's all this news about like, oh my gosh, T Swift's catalog just sold for this much, and Bob Dylan's back catalog just sold for this much, because investors are forcing, for this is just music, but as an example, but investors and these music companies are sort of forcing the hand of labels to be investing much more money in back catalogs and legacy artists and old intellectual property, old copyrights, because they're like making more, they can see that they're being streamed more often, and to be taking money away from new, emerging, current, living, breathing artists. And that this is just a kind of an echo of that trend, whereas the interest of these companies isn't in the artists themselves, it's in the copyright and the intellectual property that they can exploit, while simultaneously paying artists next to nothing for it. Yeah. Like look at the campaign to make Spotify pay artists anything decent. Just start there.
Fight for the Future has been involved with that too. And Fight for the Future has really helped out shine a light on all that. And, it's funny, too, because when you compare these two things, it's just so if ever there was a musician, because I think most musicians are empathetic people for the most part, not all the time. I mean, there's a few exceptions, but I think generally speaking, they're usually like empathetic people with loving hearts. And I think that if a musician wrote a song and somehow that song could cure cancer, and we found out, we're like, oh man, this song cures cancer. Holy shit, you listen to this song, your cancer's gone. I'm pretty sure that musician would want everyone to hear the song and would want that song to get out there. And if them waiving their copyright would help make sure everyone who needed to hear that song did, that musician would say, sure. That's again, that's how absurd it is to compare creative patents and copyrights to what big pharma does to prohibit people from getting medicine and vaccines and other drugs that they need.
Yeah, I mean, we would hope that would be the case. Taking it back to big pharma for a moment, like if you look at the pricing of insulin in the United States, for example, that is something very simple that is very inexpensive in other countries that we charge a premium for, even though it literally is a life or death thing. And I think with, like my hope too would be that an artist would immediately waive their copyright on that song. But I also see, to a very large extent, especially with, larger artists, that they've sort of been gaslit by these industries, by their representatives, into really buying into this notion of creating scarcity around their music. And a lot of the arguments, as far as I can tell, or like the things that artists are being told, are often just like, you little artist are not a lawyer. You're not that smart, and you don't actually know what's going on here. Let the lawyers take care of it. Let the lawyers protect you. What's happening before your eyes isn't happening before your eyes. And, oh no, we never intended to block COVID, saving lives from COVID, using you as a human shield. Never would we do that. You just misunderstood. And we're really continuing to work toward being in a position as an organization where we can point that gaslighting out when it's happening and tell artists that, no, like you have eyes, you can see what's happening too. It's not about being a lawyer. It's about being a decent human being, and you're among people who aren't.
Yeah, you don't need a law degree to put it together that the entertainment industry going to the mat for big pharma has nothing to do with art, has nothing to do with you, and it's just straight up corrupt. And for them to be, doing that in entertainers' names, get lost.
Yeah.
So where can people go to learn more?
Yeah, that is nocovidinourname.com, and you can sign on if you're an artist. We're just asking people to share. We're trying to get as many signatures as possible, specifically today, specifically during this meeting, so that we can continue to bring this message to bear on against the lobbyists who may be saying really horrible things in our name behind closed doors.
nocovidinourname.com. I am one of the signees. A lot of folks have already signed on, so check that out to learn more. And of course, fightforthefuture.org.
Indeed. Thanks so much, Ron.
Thank you, Leah. I know you're very busy. I'll let you get back to your day, but thanks for filling us in on this, and we'll be talking to you again soon, I hope.
All right, cool. See you soon.
All right, cheers. That was Leah Holland. She's got important work to do at Fight for the Future. They do amazing things. And of course, full disclaimer, I have collaborated with them on some campaigns in the past. And I have also donated money to that organization. And they're doing amazing things. There's a lot of great digital rights organizations in the United States, fortunately, and they are one of them. And yeah, they're staying on top of a lot of the things that we like to cover here on the show. Guys, a few other things I wanted to talk about today. And I'm just flying solo here. And first, we're going to go to what the main title was today, which is in regards to single payer in New York State. First of all, let me know in the chat. I did the different angle today. I did the different framing with StreamYard. I mean, it's not important, but I did the thing where we're side by side and we take up the full space, because some of you have said that it's better if it's you want more of my face, which I don't I don't know. I don't think the world needs more of my face, and I'm not even trying to be self-deprecating. I'm just being real. I mean, it's like, why do you? But and for those of you listening to the podcast later, I apologize for this. You're probably thinking, Rob, we get the podcast. One of the reasons we get the podcast, we don't even want to think about your face. We don't want your goofy face. One of the first trolling comments I ever got on YouTube, and this was years and years ago, was somebody literally wrote, "Is there any way you can just do audio because you're ugly as shit?" And it made me laugh. I mean, I don't think I'm that bad looking of a guy. I think I think I'm fine, whatever. But I can see how some of my features could be off-putting, and that looks are subjective. And I know this has a lot to do with single payer healthcare in New York. All right, let's get to that. Let's get to that. So here's what's going on in New York State. They are saying I mean, like the legislature, they're saying they have the vote. They have the votes to get single payer passed in New York State. And they're even saying that they have the votes to override a governor veto, should there be one. Should Governor Cuomo, that great guy, by the way, should Governor Cuomo veto it, which he might, single payer healthcare. Let that sink in for a second before we continue. Let it sink in that there are people in this country who consider Andrew Cuomo a progressive guy, and yet he is not even willing to sign on to something that guarantees everybody in his state health care. Let that sink in. Only in the United States. I mean, everywhere else, even conservatives consider healthcare a human right in other countries. I mean, watch Michael Moore's movie Sicko. Because I know some of you love to pretend like that's not the case. When I bring up stuff like the Overton window in the United States is so far to the frickin' right, they needed to buy a camera to zoom out far enough. And some of you like to, well, England, they're kind of right-wing too. Listen to Boris Johnson. They're kind of, and it's like, yeah, they are, but nothing compared. Like nothing compared to the way it is in the United States. And I know that they try to weaken the NHS over there. I know all that, but they're not trying to get rid of it. They know they couldn't. Even Boris Johnson came around saying the NHS needs more money because the NHS saved his frickin' life. Like there's just, anyway. So even these, quote, progressive champions aren't even convinced healthcare is a human right. Wouldn't even sign on to a single payer bill in their state. I mean, it's remarkable. Like this, and yeah, do other countries have their right-wingers and their problems? Of course they do. But there is no way in any other similar democratic experiment is the Overton window anywhere close to what it is in the United States. No freaking way. Anyway, I guess grass is always greener, right? I just remember when I left for Australia, I was talking to a family friend, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to go tour in Australia." And they were like, "Oh, are you going to be okay over there? They're a little more conservative in Australia." And I was like, "Where do you think we live? What country do you think we live in? The United States." Australia's a little more compared to what? Denmark? I've never performed in Denmark. Do you think I exclusively perform in Denmark? Is that what you think? Do you think are you asking me how would I do in a country more conservative than the United States? I don't know. Yemen hasn't booked me yet. If they call, I'll let you know. Anyway, yeah, I did that. I went to the beach earlier. I'm a little nervous. I went to the beach earlier and I decided to do sit-ups on the sand, which is actually really freaking fun. I recommend it. Because you hear the waves as you go up and down. It's badass. I saw a guy doing it yesterday and I was like, Wednesday, I'm doing that. But I didn't bring a towel, and my wife really hates it when I track sand into the apartment. She gets real. So I'm worried I might be tracking Magoo right now. You know what I mean? I'm worried that I might be. I mean, I brushed myself off, and of course I took my shoes off before re-entering the apartment, but I'm worried I might be tracking. So anyway, New York says they have the votes, but here, let's go to this piece right here. So New York's on the cusp of a healthcare overhaul, but sticking points remain. So a top sticking point for the New York Health Act. This is from WSKG, which is an NPR affiliate. is opposing from public, blah, blah, blah. So here we go. So here's what I want to get to here. And they're bringing up different business groups that are against this. Business groups have warned that the cost of health insurance under the new system could be higher for some. The bill could have ripple effects that would cost the state jobs. Yeah, because if employers didn't have to pay for your health care anymore, surely they couldn't afford that not payment they need to make. Don't you just love these arguments like, oh, what about the employers? You mean the ones that don't have to pay for people's health care anymore? Yeah. So they don't have to pay for people's health care anymore. Yeah. And that's going to cost jobs. Yeah. That they try to sell that. They literally try to sell that. How can these businesses possibly afford the thing they won't have to pay for anymore? That's their logic. Literally their logic. A single payer system would save money. There's just no, even right-wing think tanks have come to that conclusion. So anyway, they're talking about these different talking points, some telling the truth about how it would be better and other just straight up lying. But here's the thing. The deadline is Thursday and it's uncertain. All right, so here's the part that I wanted to highlight. It's unlikely at this point, according to this article, it's unlikely at this point of the legislative session that lawmakers will strike a deal on the bill before they're scheduled to leave for the year on Thursday. But time works differently in Albany. For some, 4 days is more than enough time to reach an agreement on even the most controversial measures. Lawmakers aren't scheduled to return to Albany after Thursday until January. So basically, the deadline is tomorrow. They're saying they got the votes for it. They got the sponsors. They're saying they even got enough to override the veto. Now, the legislature saying this, will it, when push comes to shove, will those that say they're supportive, will they actually support it? That's always a factor. And we see that here all the time at the state level and at the federal level. Think about in 2019, when there was no chance of Medicare for all going anywhere at all. Think of how many co-sponsors there were. Then all of a sudden, well, Trump's gone. Democrats got the White House. Democrats got the House. Democrats got the Senate. Where did all these co-sponsors go? Where are they? They're nowhere to be found because they weren't actually for Medicare for all. They were just doing it when it was convenient because they know the public's for it. That's how our government works. They try to trick you into thinking they actually support public opinion. Isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful? So will something happen? Tomorrow's the deadline. It's not looking great. The consensus seems to be like they're going to try to just shelf it, despite apparently having the support for it and enough to override the veto. If you live in New York, contact your legislatures, contact your reps, contact your senators, and demand that they act on this. Demand that they do something before Thursday. All right. Last thing I wanted to focus on here today. We've been talking a lot about the Amazon situation and the union vote that they had not too terribly long ago. Now, a quick refresher, what happened there? So they voted on a union in Bessemer, Alabama. And here are all the things that Amazon did. We'll go through the quick list. Amazon put a mailbox to collect ballots right in the middle of the workplace. The labor board told them they can't do this. They did it anyway. Labor board said this goes against the rules of free and fair elections. It's voter intimidation. Amazon did it anyway. Amazon also had a key. They had access to it whenever they wanted to. Employees of Amazon, people who were collecting these things, who wanted the union to fail. Another thing they were doing is they were having anti-union literature everywhere, having anti-union meetings all the time. Anyone who asked a pro-union question, they would take their information down. If you asked an anti-union question or had an anti-union point, they were fine. Pro-union, they took your information. They also prohibited the pro-union people from passing out their information. One of the ways they did that, so there's a stoplight going into the warehouse. A lot of people would pass out literature at those stoplights of their coworkers coming to work. They took out those traffic lights so that people couldn't do that. Amazon took out those traffic lights. And also there were these random 2 days where all of these no votes came in. randomly. And again, they had full access to that mailbox right in the middle of it. So here's what happened. We're going to go, Status Quo did a deep dive on this. And one of the employees of Amazon filed a case. So an Amazon worker files a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board. And the complaint that they filed was, well, here, let's go to this first, actually. Let's back up a little bit. Let me pull this up first. Hold on 1 second here. I want to get the details of the complaint. So this is from Status Quo. Exclusive. New York Amazon worker files a complaint with the National Labor Relations Board after security guard blocked him from passing out union cards. So other than all the things I just mentioned, here's another thing they did. A security guard would not let this worker pass out union cards. Fresh off a complaint filed by JFK 8 Staten Island Amazon worker Derek Palmer with the National Labor Relations Board over Amazon erecting an outdoor chain link fence to obstruct workers' unionization drive, Status Quo has learned another worker in the same warehouse has filed a complaint with the NLRB after a security guard blocked him from passing out union literature in the break room. So that's what they're doing over in Staten Island. So they did all that stuff in Bessemer. They sunk the vote. They're still fighting that out. They're still fighting it out in Bessemer because now they're declaring this was not fair. And I believe the labor board, like, they're all fighting it out. Now, there's another complaint with the labor board out in Staten Island because here, what they're doing, and I'm sure they'll try to do all the same things they did in Bessemer eventually, but they're putting up fences so that people can't pass out union literature. And then a security guard won't let someone pass out union literature in the break room. And so far, what we know, here's the update from Jordan Sheraton of Status Quo, their Twitter account. Here's a breaking update so far. Update. The National Labor Relations Board tells Status Quo the NLRB is currently investigating this charge in response to New York Amazon workers' complaint that the Amazon security illegally stopped him from handing out union pamphlets. So this is what they do. This is what they do around the country to people who want to unionize. And again, obviously the company is going to be anti-union. Obviously the workers got to battle against that. But they do everything in their power to make sure it's not a free and fair election and to make sure workers have no chance. Why? Because if workers actually organize a solid union, they would get better wages. They would get better benefits. They get better PTO. And by the way, Amazon, record profits. Jeff Bezos on his way to becoming a trillionaire. On his way to becoming a frickin' trillionaire. So there you go. We'll keep an eye on not just what's happening with the union situation in Bessemer, Alabama, because they're still fighting that out to redo that whole election, but also now they're doing stuff preemptively in Staten Island as well. So we'll keep track of both of it. Let me go over to Rockfin. Frank, thank you so much for the tip. I appreciate it very much. Thank you very much for that, Frank. Thank you for the tip over on the Rockfin. You help keep this show on the air. And Everything Revolution, what's up, buddy? Punk rock shit. Did you check out Sector for the Fury Unrelated on YouTube, releasing albums from 1983, 1984 material? I still need to do that, but I will. I took it down because I missed your super chat the other day. But thank you very much for that, Everything Revolution. And I will check out that music. Sector for the Fury Unrelated on YouTube. It's some punk rock from the mid-'80s, early mid-'80s, right? 83, 84. That's early to mid, right? It's officially, or is it officially mid after the 5? What do you guys say? I guess you can make it that it's not mid until like 5 to 7's mid, right? Could you say that? Which would make 0 to 4 early. But I think you can make the argument for mid come 4. Because then when does late start? Is late at the 8 or the 9? Huh? It's late at the 7. No, you're still mid at the 7. Although some would say that 87 and 77, those were kind of turning points. So in a way, it's like, well, is that late? Is 1 through 3 early, 4, 5, 6 mid, 789 late. I guess that would make the most sense, wouldn't it? I guess it would. Anyway, early, mid, however you want to put it, 83, 84. Everything Revolution. I will check that out. Thank you for that. And then you add unreleased. It is release. Oh, okay. So it's the Fury Unreleased. So it's the Fury Unreleased. I think the Fury Unrelated is kind of a badass name. Maybe you should change. Maybe you should call it Fury Unrelated. Because that sounds like that's just badass. I mean, it doesn't really make sense that much, but I like it. The Fury Unrelated. The Fury Unreleased. I like them both. I think they're both awesome, and I will check out your music. Thank you for the reminder. I appreciate that very, very much. All right, folks. So we'll keep an eye on. Let's again, if you're in New York, first of all, support the Staten Island warehouses. Stand with the attempts to unionize, and also call your legislatures, demand that they act on single payer. New York. And of course, nocovidinourname.com and fightforthefuture.org to learn more about what is going on around the world and how the entertainment business is going to the mat for Big Pharma and trying to convince artists that's in their interest. That's what a world. What a world. Doesn't that just and as someone who is around Hollywood, it just makes me does it piss you off? It should. It should. It should. Hey, you're an artist. It's in your name. Because the person who wrote a song that's later going to be exploited, they're the same as the person who just created a medicine that then is going to be patented over and over again to make sure that no generics can happen. And they were able to make this because of the public's money. Yeah, those are the same thing. Unbelievable. Anyway, so yeah, nocovidinourname.com to learn more about that. Fightforthefuture.org to learn about that issue and all the digital rights issues that Fight for the Future holds the line on a daily basis. And we'll be back next week. So I will not be having a show on Monday. I have a family matter to attend to. I will not be having a show on Monday, but Tuesday we should have a Get Your News On with Ron stream. Everything should be back to normal by Tuesday unless something changes. But Monday, definitely out. Tuesday, everything should be back. And we're going to be doing a deep dive into what's going on with the California broadband proposal. We're going to be doing a very, very deep dive into that, which I can't wait for. Quick summary on that so far. Governor Newsom here in California, and I'm sure this has nothing to do with the recall threat he's facing, but he found $7 billion meant for internet infrastructure. And it's, by the way, it's just money California has. It's just reserve money that California has. And he thought, this could be good for broadband infrastructure. And he has a proposal out there which would make California the leader in broadband infrastructure in the country and probably significant in the world even. So this is a good thing. And it be municipal networks. So this is a good thing. And we're going to learn all the ins and outs of the bill next week. But the legislature, similar to what New York City, or New York State, what includes New York City, but New York State, similar to what New York State is doing with single-payer healthcare, they're doing with broadband here in California. And single-payer healthcare, quite frankly. But anyway, so we're going to be doing a deep dive into that next week. In the meantime, let me find a pet to highlight. This is that time where I go to that Twitter thread where I highlight somebody's pet. I like doing that. And they're going to say something to Lucy. They'll probably say meow or wolf, but they might say something else. So let's see. Where am I at here? Long Beach, we're at you. What's up, Long Beach? Now, I happen to know for a fact, let me pull you up here. Long Beach, Mazzy sends her lickings. Now, I know Mazzy, so I can speak from experience. I know Mazzy is a dog. Sometimes when people just tell me the name of their animals, I don't know what that, I just say meow or wolf, but I do know that Mazzy is a dog. I know that for a fact. So Mazzy says wolf, and Lucy says meow, and Long Beach says peace, and Leah says peace. I'm assuming she says peace. And I say peace. And I say mutual aid. And I say general strike. See you Tuesday. Peace.